Haru is a ugly lonely high schooler with no rizz, and his classmates were even more pathetic, so God decides to isekai them all to a new world. Unfortunately, even in this fantasy land, Haru was last to the party, left behind with the scraps of useless skills, but in a twist of fate he gained unique powers tailored perfectly to his shut-in lifestyle. Haru doesn't seek friendship, glory, or even a harem, and his only goal is a peaceful hold-up life filled with comfort and safety. The story begins with a boy spying on a group of goblins warming themselves around a campfire. However, he makes the rookie mistake of stepping on a twig, alerting the goblins. But as the goblin chases him, the boy smirks, revealing this is all part of his master plan, and the goblins soon tumble into a pitfall trap which he had set up earlier. Revealing his face, he sighs in relief, thinking that this was a close call, and he's glad that he laid out this trap in advance. The scene flashes back to the day when he got teleported to the new world, where we learn that our MC Haruka was a ugly lonely loser with no rizz, and he never fit in with any of the class groups which are divided into the delinquents, fashion girls, fitness freaks, nerds, and the group led by his future waifu. As Haru is enjoying his peaceful isolation, the classroom begins to glow ominously, and a mysterious magic circle appears, throwing the entire class into confusion. While most students panic, Haru's reaction is a mix of excitement and annoyance. He thinks that getting teleported to another world sounds cool, but it also seems like a major hassle. So, as the other students start getting teleported, Haru attempts to escape the room by breaking down the door and even climbing into the ceiling. Unfortunately, the magical circle has other plans, and it materializes above him, and he gets teleported. Haru finds himself in a blank white void, hoping for some ugly king with a hot daughter. However, he only sees an old dude trying to interact in sign language, and Haru learns that his classmates have already been transported to the other world, but he's left behind. The old man asks him to choose a skill, but out of 50 skills 43 have been already chosen, so there are no cheat skills available, and all that's left are trash skills. Frustrated, Haru demands better options, and in an act of desperation, the old man gives him all the remaining abilities and boots him to the fantasy world. Haru then finds himself in a dense forest and sees a pouch on the ground. He learns that it has unlimited carrying capacity, but the stuff inside it is as worthless as him.
Boom! Roasted!
He changes into his isekai outfit, and as he tries to open the menu to check his stats, Haru is prompted to use his dice skill. After rolling he gets 2 M's, but he doesn't know what it means. He decides to use this point on his luck stat, and learns that this has maximized his luck stat. He learns that he has got 2 unique skills, servitude which allows him to command others, and loner, which prevents him from forming parties, and that means he can't have his harem. He looks around to see if any of his classmates are around, but there is no one, so Haru then decides to move forward, and build his own home. He explores the forest thinking that the visibility is really poor because of all the trees, and he remembers that he has a contact lens in his bag. As he puts them on, he can see the names of all the plants and other things around him, and learns that this lens grants him the appraisal skill. He decides to use this ability to find edible items, and collect them as much as he can. He then comes across a cave, and as he looks around, he thinks of living there. By the time night fell, Haru made himself more comfortable, and when he checked his stats, he learned that some of his skills got leveled up, but he's too tired to check them out, and falls asleep. The following morning he checks his surroundings, and learns that his monster-repelling items have worked well, and his loner stat protects his living space. He then prepares his breakfast, and thinks that the villager set he received is actually useful. Later, as he scouts for some food, he encounters 2 goblins, making him crap his pants. He's not sure if he can take them down with his stick, and uses some magic around it. He then attacks the goblins, and manages to take one down after attacking several times. The other goblin tries to attack him, but he can predict its move, and manages to defeat it as well. Later, he heads back home, and eats a roasted mushroom for dinner. As he checks his stats, he learns that he has leveled up again. The following day, he's fed up with having mushrooms, and thinks about having some meat, but thinks that his waifu would be against it. He then decides to work on his magic skills, and boost his stats. As he runs through the forest, he is surprised to see his speed has increased, and his body feels very light. He can now easily take down 2 goblins, but he's still scared to face 3 at once. As the days go on, Haru spends his time goblin hunting during the day, and studying magic at night. After 5 days, he managed to defeat a goblin in a single strike, and also decorated his base with fancy stuff. He also created a wooden gate at the cave entrance, and thinks his isekai life is going well. All that is left is to find some meat, and later we see him chasing a rabbit. He manages to catch it, but just then notices the delinquents from his world. He uses clairvoyant, and sees that other groups are also nearby. He then spots his future waifu, and thinks about meeting her, but since he's an ultimate shut-in, he decides to conquer this world alone. However, he got too excited about his loner life, and this alerted the delinquents. He immediately hid in the bushes, but one of them noticed something, and headed to the bush. However, as he proceeds to check, the bunny comes out of it, and they decide to turn away. Haru then follows them as he's curious about their plans, but all they want is some hardcore plot development with girls led by his future waifu. They have also grabbed one of the nerds named Tanaka, and they are using him as a Google search engine to learn more about their abilities. They then decided to find the girls, and went on their way, while Haru decided to head back to his cave. While checking his stats, he notices that his loner stats have leveled up as he hid from his classmates. However, his overall level is still 3, probably because of his Master of None skill. He's also clueless about the blockhead skill, but decides to focus on his appetite. Later that night, he hears some sounds, and finds out it's the nerds who are in an all-out battle against goblins. Checking their stats using his appraisal, he learns that all of them have better abilities, and he's the only one with worthless skills. He then recalls that his class was full of top-class students, and he was the only loser there. So, he decides to head back. However, he senses some goblins trying to attack the nerds from behind, and decides to help them. He jumps in, and knocks out both the goblins with his huge wood. The nerds thank him for saving them, and he takes them to his cave. They are amazed to see such an amazing cave, and Haru tells them that he used his earth magic along with other low magic to set it up. Haru then asks about the others, and he learns that they are on the run. On the day when they were teleported to this world, they were attacked by the goblins. However, the nerds who have watched the Isekai Insights video knew that these are just small fries, and attacked them with their skills. The jocks also helped them, and they managed to defeat them. After that, his future waifu, being the class rep, took the charge, leading them to a clear area where they could see any danger approaching. The nerds helped everyone understand the basics, and set up a camp. The class rep assigned them jobs to set up the tent, but the fashion girls and the delinquent bailed out, and eventually class got divided into their own groups. After that, only the class rep, the nerds, and a handful of students worked together. Since others were so incompetent, the nerds did most of the work, including the battle against the goblins, making sure that their camp didn't get attacked. The delinquent possesses the dangerous skill that can control everyone, so they wanted to raise their level so that they can resist against them. However, the delinquents started to level up as well, so that they can take control of everyone else, and create a harem of their own. The nerds informed the class rep, and she decided to raise her level as well. After a few days, the delinquents managed to learn the mind control skills, and tried to use the spell on the class rep. However, she managed to overpower them with the help of nerds, and they sealed away their powers. The delinquents were kicked out. However, later that night, they came back, attacked their classmates, and burned down the tents. The entire camp was destroyed, and the dumb fashion girls blamed nerds for everything. The class rep and a few students tried to stand against them, but the nerds chose to leave. Haru was amazed by their story, and he treated them with his mushrooms. The following day the nerds decided to head town to become adventurers, and invited Haru, but being an ultimate loner he decided to stay back, and shoo them away like a dog. Haru then decides to check up on his future waifu, but on the way he runs into kobolds, who bites him in the arm, but he manages to knock the kobold out. Later at night, he runs into the dumb girls, and tries to run away, but the girls request him to stop. They inquire about the nerds, as they want to apologize to them as they finally realized that they were trying to be mean bitches. Haru tells them that they have already left, and chasing them in the forest would be a death sentence. However, the girls start crying, telling him that they just want to say sorry. They beg Haru to help them, and he accepts. This unknowingly activates his servitude ability, and the girls follow him around like puppets. They would also finish off the enemy he hunts, and when he tries to give them some of his health potion they throw it back to him. He wonders how he ended up in this mess, and what his future waifu will think if she sees him now. Just then, the class rep appears, but Haru is too zoned out to notice her, so she screams at him, managing to gain his attention finally. Just then, the other girls catch up to them, and the class rep notices something wrong with the fashion girls. Haru tells her about the situation, and mentions that his skill activated on his own. However, all the girls give him a death stare like he's some kind of pervert who is planning hardcore plot development with those girls. Haru tries to escape, but they tell him to stop. The class rep manages to snap out the fashion girls from their trance, and they explain the situation about how Haru helped them. Meanwhile, Haru decides to do some magic practice, but the worthless loser ends up getting it wrong, and gets stuck beneath the ground. The class rep pulls him out, and based on the explanation of the fashion girls, she concludes that he's harmless. The girls thank him for his help, but Haru just wants to go home. The class rep wonders how he has a home in this place, and he tells them that he built it. She wonders how many people they can fit in his home, and he replies that he can easily fit in around 240, but if he includes his kitchen and bath spaces they can fit in more. The girls are surprised, and the class rep is pissed, wondering how he is living in such luxury while the rest are barely surviving in the forest. The class rep then asks him whether they can stay there for the night, and Haru can't help imagining the plot development he'll have, so he agrees.
Yeah, boy.
He then led them to the forest which also has the navigator installed, and they manage to reach his home. Haru welcomes the girls to his home, but they are shocked to see such a huge place, and are excited to live there, while Haru wonders if his harem dream will finally come true. When the girls spot the bathroom, they immediately take off their clothes and jump in, while Haru stands outside and wonders if the forest has turned them into savages. Haru then decides to call it a night, and feels happy that he finally managed to have his own space outside. Just then, the class rep comes in, and thanks him for his help. She thinks that she's worthless as she couldn't do anything for them, but Haru tells her that she did a great job protecting the girls throughout the journey. She thanks him for his kind words and returns back, while Haru doesn't think he'll get much sleep as he can't help imagining the girls sleeping in his room. The following day as he wakes up, he sees a girl in his tent, and she tells him that they have prepared mushroom and grilled fish for breakfast. Haru gets excited hearing this, and accidentally bumps her head. He then starts eating the fish like he has never seen a fish before, and the class rep wonders why he never had fish even though the river is near. Haru explains that he was so useless that he couldn't manage to catch a fish, and they always slipped away. Later, the girls show him how it's done, and one of the girls uses a lighting spell to catch the fishes. He then asks the girl to show it again, and this time when she creates the lightning, Haru seals it inside his cube. He uses it to catch the fish, and he manages to gain the lightning spell. The class rep thinks that looks like a cheat skill, but Haru thinks that the skills he has are all worthless because they took all the good skills. Later, he asks her about their next plans, and learns that they plan on finding their way to a nearby city. Haru thinks that they are not strong right now, and will need to raise their levels. The class rep asks for his help, and he agrees. Before starting the training he asks them about their current level, and is shocked to learn that the minimum level among them is 16 whereas he's only level 7. He wonders if he can teach them anything when they are already this strong, and just then a few kobolds appear. He asks the girls to fight with the kobolds. Although the girls seem confident in their levels, they are easily beaten down, and they realize that they are totally useless. Later, they discuss it in Haru's tent, and decide to try fighting again. Meanwhile, the girl from earlier apologizes for entering his tent without permission, and tells him that she was just testing him, as the boys in her class had once tried to assault her, but she realizes that Haru is harmless. The following day, as Haru is enjoying his breakfast, he hears the girls planning to fight the kobolds. But as they head to fight them, the class rep mentions that they need to train first, and they begin the training. However, they couldn't even manage to fight against lower-level goblins, and get defeated easily. They continue their training for a while, and the day for a rematch finally arrives. The kobolds even mock the girls, and Haru notices that some worthless ones are either sleeping or finding excuses to not to fight. However, not all of them are useless, and the fish girl takes the initiative to attack them. The other girls also support her, and they manage to defeat the kobolds. Haru thinks that his job is finally done, and he can finally have his loner life, but just then the class rep asks him when they're leaving. He's surprised as he never planned to go to the city, but she forces him to accompany them. The following morning, he stuffs his bag with the mushrooms, but the class rep tells him that they can't carry that much, so he asks the fish girl to stay there, and look after his stuff. Class rep is shocked, and tells him that they can't leave her behind. They are excited to start on their new adventure, and Haru asks the class rep to make sure they're ready for everything as they don't know what lies ahead. Meanwhile, we see a man in a hood chasing a nerd in the forest, and he manages to catch him. The nerd tells him that he doesn't have the abilities he's looking for, but the man kills him with his bare hands. The following day, they continue their journey through the forest, and Haru is trying to get them to leave the forest soon as he doesn't want to run into the delinquents. Just then, they are met with a giant orc, and Haru asks the girls to hide behind the trees. He asks the worthless bunch to learn from him, and he charges in with his wood, but as soon as the orc tries to strike him with its massive wood he vanishes. Since the orc is big in size he tries to use its slow movement to his advantage, and disappears. We see that he hid behind the trees, and he tries to devise a plan to defeat the orc as physical attacks don't give much damage, but they are weak against magic attacks. He opens his stats and starts looking for any magic abilities he can use against the orc. He realizes that he has some basic elemental magic, which he used for maid work at home. Just then, the orc manages to find him, and it attacks him, but Haru manages to dodge it easily. He then appears behind the orc, and attacks it with his long wood, making the orc fall to ground, and proving that stamina matters much more than size.
What do you mean by that?
Haru is surprised that he was able to defeat it easily as orcs are resistant against physical damage, while the girls seem annoyed since they didn't learn anything as he knocked out the orc with one swing of his wood. He apologizes to them, and promises to take down the next orc with his magic. He then spots an orc, and decides to rizz up the girls trying to show off his fire magic. He creates a small fireball, and attacks the orc, however to his surprise, that orc gets defeated in a single attack as well, making the girls even more annoyed. Later at night, the girls enjoy the campfire dinner, while Haru prepares safety measures for them by creating traps for the enemies, and adding monster repellent and presence detection. Suddenly, he detects someone coming their way, and hides behind the trees. He wonders if it's the delinquents, but it turns out to be the jocks. He wonders if they came looking for some plot development with the girls, however, they tell him they came looking for him, making Haru wonder about this unexpected plot development. Haru learns that they are even trying to hide from the girls because they are more worried about the hijack ability which can steal other people's skill. Since the delinquents don't have it, they assume it must be with the girls. Haru asks them what if he had that skill, but the jocks laugh it off, as if he had that skill it won't matter as he's just a worthless shut-in.
Emotional damage!
Haru tells them that even though he doesn't have the hijack ability, he has servitude ability. However, the jocks think that this may be more dangerous than hijack skill, but they don't really care since it's with Haru. The jocks then tell him that they'll look out for the delinquents, and bid farewell. The following morning, the girls get ready to get some weapons training, but while they are busy getting ready, Haru decides to go into the forest to let one out. However, the class rep stops him, and she's trying to confess that she has the hijack skill, but Haru already knows about it. She's surprised as he didn't react at all, but Haru explains that even the nerds who knew her ability trusted her as they didn't seal off her abilities when they sealed the abilities of the delinquents, which means that everyone trusts her, and they are more relieved that she has the hijack skill which can steal the skill of a person after killing them. The class rep is moved to tears by his words, and Haru teases her, but she smiles at him telling that it's all because of him who keeps making her wet. This gets Haru's emotions flooding, and he runs off to the forest to blow away some steam. Later, when he gets back to the camp, he starts selling his juices for money. One of the girls even offers her body as she doesn't have the money, and Haru agrees to it, but the class rep prevents his Excalibur from getting any action, and scolds him for charging money for his juices. Later, as they progress further into the forest, Haru spots the river up ahead, and tells the class rep that he'll be going ahead to scout. Haru then uses his flash ability to rush into the forest, and then starts using his magic infusion skill to make his body lighter and then starts jumping onto the trees, before launching himself up in the sky for a better view. He realizes that they have covered a lot of ground, but just then the dumb MC realizes that he doesn't have any landing gear, and crashes down to the ground barely surviving with 1 HP bar. By the time he reaches back, it's already night, and the class rep is mad seeing his bruises. He offers his juice as a peace offering, but she refuses and walks away. However, the other girl who offered her body, rushes to him, and is dying to get a taste of his sweet juice.
What do you mean by that?
The following day, because of his scouting they found a faster route. However, the girls took their sweet time, and they also ran into an orc group, but they finally made it out of the forest. Haru then checks his stats, and learns that he has learnt the air walking skill. He starts trying it out, and manages to walk in the air as if he's climbing stairs. The class rep is shocked to see this, but Haru calms her down, and tells her that he'll check if the area ahead is safe or not. Using his clairvoyance, he sees a group of people being attacked by monsters, but heroism isn't his brand, and he reports this to the class rep. The girls want to help them, but Haru is not willing to take any risk, as they may be bandits. However, the class rep insists on helping them, so Haru decides to go alone. He starts combining different spells, and then uses wind magic for high-speed air walk. But just then, he realizes that the class rep is holding onto his cape, and she tells him that she got caught up in his wind magic. Due to the increased weight, they crash land to the exact spot of monsters, and they end up dying. The people turn out to be adventurers, and they thank them for the save. One of the adventurers introduces himself as Gatek, and they mention that they were on a quest from Adventurers Guild to hunt down packs of monsters, but they were clearly outmatched, and if not for Haru they would have died. As the group tries to recover, Haru offers them some grilled mushrooms, but as they take a bite, they realize that these are not normal mushrooms, but buff shrooms that help them recover instantly. They can't believe that he offered them such a valuable resource, but his mind is stuck at the fact that these old losers are surrounded by these hot girls, which pisses him off, and gets ready to punch them, but thankfully the class rep wakes up and stops him. The other girls also catch up with them, and they are surprised to see beautiful elves, and start asking them for a shake hand. Later, they are escorted by the adventurers, and they reach the town called Omui. The girls immediately start rushing towards it, and happily enter the city. Haru is pretty happy to see that the girls seem delighted by the new city, and they run around the town checking every single shop, while Haru wonders whether he should leave since his job here is done. The buildings look like massive cupcakes sprinkled, and the girls have the brilliant idea to taste test one. Before they can start licking walls, class rep stops them, and screams at Haru, who is sipping on his juice from the sidelines, to help her manage these dumb girls. Class rep then whips out her whistle, and lines them up like obedient puppies, which surprises Haru as he didn't know she had so much power over them. She then plans to go to the Adventurers Guild, where they will trade their loot for money, and then get a good night's sleep at some hotel. The group swings by the Adventurers Guild, but it looks scarier than they expected, as they were expecting girls with massive plots welcoming them. Just then, Haru is called to meet with the guild master, and inside he finds an angry-looking guild master who asks if he was the one who defeated the wild beasts. Haru admits, and the guild master thanks him for saving his party. After that, Haru decides to trade the emerald crystal he gathered along the way, and meets the receptionist who agrees to appraise them and pay a fair price. However, Haru dumps a mountain of crystals at the guild counter to be appraised, freaking out the receptionist. She tells him that they don't have the capacity to check all of them, and asks him for a day's time. Haru agrees, and he meets up with the girls, where the girls casually flash their level 30 plus stats like their VIP passes to a fancy club. They sign up without a hitch, and Haru boasts about training them. However, when he steps up to register, the blonde girl rejects him instantly as he's only level 9, and the guild requires level 10 if you're in a party or level 20 if he plans to do solo, and he'll only earn any credibility by reaching level 30. This breaks Haru, and he starts begging, but the receptionist asks him to work on himself as he can never form a party with his ugly face.
That one there was a violation, personally I wouldn't have it.
The class rep feels bad for him, and takes him to a love hotel to spend the night, but to Haru's disappointment it's just a normal hotel. They all get some rest, but Haru finds it difficult to sleep as he feels much more comfortable sleeping in the forest. The following morning, Haru decides to get the money, and go back to the forest as the girls are now safe. However, the guild didn't have enough money to pay him back for the crystals, and apologize to him. The guild master offers to pay him installments, and Haru agrees. He hands him over 8 million in local currency as down payment, which shocks Haru, and all the girls celebrate and plan for shopping as if it were their money. Meanwhile, Gatek, being the true bro, tells him to ditch these dumb girls, and come with him for real action, which makes Haru's imagination set off for some hardcore plot development. The class rep tries to stop him, but he ignores her, and follows Gatek, dreaming about all the girls he would find. However, Gatek drags him to a sketchy weapons store that's crammed with weird relics and a shopkeeper who looks like he'd charge your mom extra just for breathing near the merchandise. Haru spends the whole evening trying on the equipment, and his eyes lock onto a fancy necklace that can combine up to 7 items for insane synergy. Just then, the class rep arrives, and asks him to go to bed. As Haru tries to leave, he trips and fuses a bunch of the store's expensive gear without even paying, and the shopkeeper flips out. The items are worth over 10 million, and Haru goes into depression after hearing this, as his entire 8 million stack goes up in smoke. Few days pass, and Haru is still depressed as he's broke and he can't go out on quests as he's not an adventurer due to level restrictions. Even if he tries to sneak out with the girls, he'll be stopped by the class rep. Haru thinks that this city life is not for him, and decides to leave. He grabs his invisibility cloak, and slips past the girls. As he tries to leap for the city wall, he gets startled by the sporty girls, causing him to crush his family jewels on the stone barrier.
Damn!
He notices that one of them is missing, and using his perception he sees that the nudist girl is ready to strip down in public. However, before she reveals her full plot they manage to stop her. The following day, while the girls embark on an official quest, Haru seizes the chance to sneak out again, and using his invisibility cloak he manages to exit the city walls. He's so eager to rush back to the forest that he ignores a destroyed village and goblins since he's no hero. He also spots a carriage under bandit attack, and a girl inside screams for help. Haru almost bails on her, but the bandits spot him, so he decides to fight, and with his newly fused staff, he blasts them with explosive magic. The bandits try to attack him again using their special abilities, but these losers with their tiny spell can't keep up, and get tired soon.
What do you mean by that?
Just then, the girl walks out of the carriage, introducing herself as Mary the village lord's daughter, but the dimwit doesn't know if she should thank him as he nearly ditched her. She offers to give him a reward if he accompanies her back to her village, and he happily accepts, but he freaks out when she tells him that her village is Omui. He tries to bail, but she basically kidnaps him in her carriage, determined to prove her hometown isn't the dump he claims it to be. Meanwhile, in the forest, the delinquents finally confront the jocks for a good old-fashioned throwdown, but just as the delinquent leader tries to attack them, the mysterious cloaked figure from earlier sneaks behind him, and sinks a blade into his back. One of the delinquents tries to attack the cloaked figure, but he easily kills him. The other delinquents manage to break his weapon, but he picks up the delinquent leader's weapon, and cuts them down like they're disposable extras. Seeing this, the jocks make a run for it, but the cloaked man catches up to them, and they are surprised to see his face. On the other side of the chaos, Haru arrives at the manor, and his eyes widen seeing such a huge place. He notices a portrait of the lord and his wife, but he can't find anything to do here, so he tries to leave. However, Mary catches him, and before he can cook up another escape attempt, she treats him to a feast worthy of a festival. He devours it all like a starved beast, ignoring how she's elegantly dressed. She looks displeased at his lack of compliments, then snaps her fingers for the maids to hand over his reward, a stack of money and a shiny ID card with the city's name. However, Haru is more interested in the food, and Mariel feels annoyed by his total disinterest in everything she's done for him. The following day, the girls pile on questions about his whereabouts, and Haru tells them that he got invited to Lord's Manor, though he keeps the full story under wraps. They buy it for now, since they have a quest to tackle outside the city. The class rep warns Haru not to wander off, but fails to notice he's already cooking up a plan to bolt. Before he leaves, he has his fill of non-mushroom snacks, buys stuff from his favorite shady vendor, scribbles a goodbye note, and marches right out of Omui. He flashes his ID card, and the gate guard barely gives him a glance, and Haru thinks he's finally free from the city's madness. Back in his beloved forest, Haru breathes in the monster-scented air. He's happy to see trees, random goblins, and absolutely no half-naked girls trying on new outfits in public. Everything seems right again, until he senses something wrong seeing the blood trail. Following the trail, he finds the jocks, who look like they just had a near-death battle. They're relieved to see him, and seeing them barely alive, he rolls out his mushroom potions, and uses every last drop on them. Haru learns about the cloaked figure annihilating the delinquents, and this guy's apparently targeting the class rep for her hijack skill, the one that can steal abilities after a kill. The jocks find out that the cloaked figure is some kind of brainiac who tricked the delinquents into wrecking the class, and they also mention he's unbelievably strong. Haru, who's only level 9 or 10 on a good day, is less than thrilled about the idea of tangling with this supervillain. But the jocks have no fight left in them, so they beg Haru to help them fight the cloaked figure. Haru reluctantly accepts, but decides that if someone's gotta get smacked around, it might as well be him, as if all of them were to die in the battle, the girls would be left defenseless. So, he sends off the jocks to warn the girls, while he plans to get stronger quickly before the fight. Meanwhile, in the city, the class rep searches for Haru, but can't find him anywhere. They eventually find his note, so they think that he's fine, and decide to carry on with leveling. Meanwhile, Haru thinks that he has learned from the jocks that the cloaked figure has a weapon skill, so he's got to up his game to stand a chance against that guy. He goes hunting in the forest, and quickly takes on some high-level goblins, but they die in one hit, and don't give him any XP. Just then, he encounters a goblin king who starts attacking him, and Haru realizes that he's using some kind of weapon skill. He decides to combine various skills, and after some fancy staff moves, he takes care of the Goblin King down in one hit. Suddenly a level 50 Goblin Emperor appears behind him, and Haru tries to attack the monster, but this does almost no damage to the monster. The monster starts attacking Haru, and he's barely able to keep up. He manages to land an attack, but the monster uses a healing skill to restore its health. The monster then sends him flying, making him crash into the trees, but Haru refuses to quit. They clash all night, with the sun rising on Haru's final blow, and he levels up to 11. Later, he checks out his stats, and finds out more about using the new skills he obtained. In the evening, he meets the cloaked figure, and we learn that it's the nerd Tanaka, who had hoped that the jocks would lead him to the class rep, but instead he was led to Haru. It's revealed that it was Tanaka who manipulated the delinquents, and divided the class into separate groups. He also killed some of them, but he doesn't consider Haru a threat, so, he doesn't intend to fight him. However, Haru points his staff at him, challenging him to fight for his class, and Tanaka decides to kill him first. Tanaka unleashes his powers which shatters the ground, and he tells Haru that while he was in the White Room, he ensured all the leftover skills were trash. He believes Haru's skills are nothing compared to his own, and launches some rocks at him. Tanaka uses his skill to restrict Haru's movement, leaving him struggling to dodge the attack. Haru realizes he's having difficulty moving his body when Tanaka summons ice from the ground, but Haru manages to avoid all of it. Impressed, Tanaka asks Haru how long he's been suspicious of him. Haru explains that he thought Tanaka was acting strange from the beginning, especially since he was hanging out with delinquents despite usually being alone. Haru learns that Tanaka devised his plan in the White Room when he learned that the hijack skill was already taken. He reveals that he used his skill called Metal to manipulate the delinquents, and then summons Roots to restrain Haru before blasting him with a massive fireball. Tanaka believes the fight is over, but he soon realizes Haru is absorbing his magic. Haru explains that the vine he had used to fuse with his staff had a magic absorption effect, and charges at Tanaka, planning to end the fight with a single blow. However, his attack is blocked by Tanaka's sword, and he tells him that his average wood will never match up to his Excalibur.
What do you mean by that?
He starts attacking Haru, who struggles to defend himself as Tanaka keeps changing weapons, making his attacks unpredictable. Haru jumps away but gets hit, crashing to the ground, and Tanaka taunts him, asking if he's ready to give up. Haru notices that Tanaka has several weapon skills and realizes he's using an ability called Copycat to steal their classmates' skills. Tanaka reveals that he plans to use Copycat on the class rep before killing her to steal her hijack skill, and he wants to become the strongest by stealing everyone's cheat skills. He attacks Haru, who barely manages to block, and when Haru tries to counterattack, Tanaka uses his apparition skill to disappear. Haru stops moving, and believing Haru has given up, Tanaka charges in, but Haru dodges at the last moment. Haru asks Tanaka if he can only use the same skill 3 times, shocking Tanaka, and he realizes that his theory is correct. Haru explains that he figured out the weakness of the copycat skill by observing Tanaka, who avoided using the same skill more than twice to preserve his copied abilities. Tanaka dismisses Haru's revelation, claiming it doesn't matter since Haru can't keep up with his weapon skills. However, Haru dodges Tanaka's attacks and counters, showing that he's already adjusted to Tanaka's speed. Haru gains the upper hand, pushing Tanaka back, and just as Haru is about to finish him off, Tanaka uses his magic bow, but Haru dodges his attack. Angry, Tanaka reveals he hasn't used his ultimate skill yet, claiming his other abilities are nothing in comparison. He attacks from above, shattering the ground. Haru initially thinks the move is unimpressive but realizes it was just a distraction as Tanaka appears behind him, and uses an instant death skill. Haru collapses, and Tanaka laughs, saying he didn't want to waste his ultimate skill but had no choice. Confident Haru is dead, Tanaka starts to walk away, however, Haru calls out to him, shocking Tanaka. Haru explains that his well-being skill protects him from status effects, and his maxed-out luck stat made the skill even less effective. When Tanaka asks why Haru collapsed, Haru admits he only pretended to fall to make Tanaka lower his guard. Frustrated, Tanaka questions how Haru is moving despite his metal skill which should restrict his movement. Haru reveals that his dummy skill allows him to move like a puppet, rendering metal skill ineffective. Tanaka tries to attack him, but Haru deflects his weapon attacks, and warns him about wasting skill charges. Tanaka grows desperate, believing his perfect calculations would guarantee victory, but Haru counters that they're in a fantasy world full of unknown variables, making perfect calculations impossible. Through flashbacks, we learn that Tanaka found school boring, and felt excited when transported to the White Room. Determined to escape his boredom, he devised his plan to become the strongest, even if it meant killing his classmates. Tanaka attacks with his sword, but Haru disarms him, and as he prepares the finishing blow, Tanaka suddenly uses his ability to penetrate his sword into Haru. Tanaka insists he has a 100% chance of winning, but Haru knocks him down again, explaining that it's effort and training, and not calculations that determine victory. Haru uses his made-up skill to deliver a devastating blow, and defeats Tanaka. Although his skills are trash, Haru reflects on how his training taught him numerous tricks. Haru is exhausted having consumed all his mana, and just as he collapses, the nerds arrive to rescue him. They help him leave the forest, and reveal that his classmates were worried because he was fighting alone. Back at camp, the girls welcome Haru, and apologize to the nerds for mistreating them earlier. Grateful for their help, the class reunites, and Haru thinks about leaving, as he's no longer needed, but the class rep stops him, expressing her relief that he's alive, and the girls drag Haru away, warning him to prepare for his punishment. Later that night, Haru has a dream about someone chained deep inside a dungeon, waiting for someone to come there for rescue. The next day, Haru meets the nerds and asks them if they are going to the dungeon. They tell him that they've been looking for a rare item that will increase their rizz points, and change people's opinion of them. Haru tells them that they would definitely need it, but the nerd thinks that the ugly loser like him would need it more.
Emotional damage!
They leave for the dungeon, and Haru thinks that it's time for him to leave town. However, the class rep suddenly appears behind him, telling him they need to talk. He tells her that he already got scolded yesterday, but she tells him that it was collective scolding, and she still hasn't given him her lecture and scolds him for fighting Tanaka alone. She tells him that he shouldn't do anything so dangerous, and leaves. Haru then thinks about the item the nerds mentioned, and he wonders if he can use it to avoid being scolded, so he decides to search for it in the dungeon. As Haru makes his way to the dungeon, he encounters a group of orcs, so he decides to take them on. Back in the city, the guild master orders the class rep to hunt monsters near the highway, but Mary suddenly interrupts them. She explains that a group of orcs are about to attack them, and they have already destroyed a nearby village. The adventurers and the class rep agree to support, and get ready for the fight. Meanwhile, we see Haru charging at the orcs and noting that he has never seen them grouped together before, but he easily defeats them. He then fights their leader, a level 37 orc king, and overpowers it with a devastating combo, knocking it to the ground. He then heads to the dungeon, and uses his stealth skill to sneak past the guard. He is nervous about exploring the dungeon, but he decides to look around, and finds a treasure chest. However, when he opens it, he realizes it's full of junk, and it's totally worthless as his ugly face. He then thinks about the merchant who sells special items in town, and decides to ask him about it. Meanwhile, at the town gate, the adventurers are ready to defend against the approaching horde, but after some time, the guild master starts to wonder if the orcs are really coming. Mary mentions that they should arrive at any moment, and just then, the adventurers see something approaching, so they prepare for battle, but it's just Haru. He asks them what they're doing there, and the class rep explains that they gathered to protect the town from an incoming horde of orcs. However, he casually mentions that he already took them out, saying they weren't even a threat because they were too weak. Everyone is in disbelief, but the girls scold him for putting himself in danger. Mary and the guild master thank him for protecting the town, but the class rep scolds him for fighting the orcs alone, as he could have died. She explains that they are lecturing him because they don't want him to take such risks again, especially since there has been an increase in monster activity, leading them to believe a monster stampede is about to happen. Haru realizes that he can never truly enjoy his life as a loner like this, and the only way to achieve his goal is to find the special item which can raise his rizz level. The next day, Haru visits the merchant who sells special items, but the merchant assumes Haru will cause trouble again and tells him he has nothing to sell. However, Haru explains that he just wants to learn about the affinity-raising item, and the merchant then tells him about the pheromone ring, saying it can be found in a nearby dungeon, which gets Haru's blood raising between his legs.
What do you mean by that?
The merchant explains that it's likely in an unexplored area which is deeper than the 50th floor. He reveals that the dungeon has 100 floors, but warns that going deeper won't be easy because each floor has a boss that adventurers must defeat to proceed. He also tries to sell him his potions by scaring him with the rumors of an overpowered dungeon emperor, but Haru mentions that he'll buy potions from the general store instead, which frustrates the merchant, who can't believe he didn't buy anything from him. Meanwhile, the nerds overhear Haru's conversation, and inform the girls about it. They suspect that he's up to no good, and decide to work together to stop him. We then see Haru making his way to the dungeon, but his classmates suddenly appear. The class rep questions why he's searching for the pheromone ring, and he lies that he actually wants another item called the Solomon ring, which allows him to talk to animals. His classmates don't believe him, but before they can stop him, he runs into the dungeon, and everyone follows him, ignoring the guards' attempts to stop them. Haru runs ahead, and accidentally activates a trap, causing him to fall into a pit. The class rep tries to save him, but can't reach him. As he is about to hit the ground, he uses earth magic to turn the ground bouncy, and manages to survive. Looking around, he wonders where he is and suspects he has reached the bottom of the dungeon. Realizing the area is dangerous, he tries to use his airwalk skill to ascend, but it doesn't work vertically. So, he decides to look for another way out, and uses spatial awareness and trap detection to scan the area. He learns that he is on the 101st floor, making him worry that a secret boss may reside in the area. As he walks down the hallway, he struggles to breathe due to the miasma. He spots a door and wonders if there's a secret boss inside. Opening it, he is immediately overwhelmed by an overpowering presence of the mysterious creature known as the Dungeon Emperor. Using his appraisal skill, he sees that it's level 100, but all of the other stats are hidden, and he's about to shit himself. Knowing that he can't win a ranged battle, he decides to close the distance, attacking with insane speed. However, the Emperor blocks his strike, and keeps up with his movements. Haru refuses to give up, and thinks that the only way to win is to surpass its speed. He starts attacking relentlessly, but he suddenly gets a vision that he's about to get stabbed, so he jumps away. He realizes that while he was trying to keep up with the Emperor's movements, his contact lens unlocked a new skill that allows him to see the future. However, he knows that he can't let his guard down because the Emperor can kill him in an instant. The fight continues, but he eventually runs out of magic and stamina. As the Emperor approaches him, he thinks he's about to die, but the Emperor waits for him to recover. He can't sense any bloodlust from the Emperor, and he thinks that he's still alive because it doesn't want to kill him. He tells the Emperor to stop underestimating him, and charges in, attacking it from behind, but it threatens him with its sword. He realizes that it's being controlled by the miasma, but he notices that his staff is absorbing the miasma. He uses it to attack the Emperor until the miasma completely disappears. The Emperor stops attacking, and Haru realizes that it didn't kill him when it had the chance because it wanted him to put it out of its misery. He knows that the miasma was forcing it to fight him, and it drops its weapon. However, the miasma suddenly returns, and he realizes it's about to control the Emperor again. He thinks that he needs to kill the Emperor before it suffers at the hands of darkness again, but instead, he hugs it thinking that it's also a loner like him. In doing so, he accidentally activates his servitude skill. He admits that he doesn't know how it works, but he realizes that it was able to free the Emperor. He wonders if it's willing to work with him, but the Emperor remains silent. He thinks it's upset because he turned it into his servant, but it shakes its head, so he realizes that it can understand him. He uses his appraisal skill and sees that its level is reset. He also learns that its name is Angelica, which makes him worried because he thinks that the class rep is going to freak out as he has turned another girl into his slave. However, he thinks that it won't count since she's a skeleton. They decide to leave the dungeon and reach the 100th floor, where Haru sees a staircase. He thinks about using it to reach the surface, but the floor master suddenly appears. He realizes that it's a level 100 living armor and thinks he's doomed since he couldn't even defeat Angelica when she was holding back during their fight. He decides to avoid it and uses his earth magic to destroy the ceiling, planning to escape using his air walk. However, he sees two monsters above him and uses his appraisal skill, realizing they're both at level 99. However, Haru has maxed out luck, so when the monsters jump to attack him, they land on top of living armor, defeating it, and the fall damage reduces their HP. Haru finishes them off, and collects the loot. Angelica looks at the armor dropped by the floor master, and Haru asks her to wear it. She puts it on, but it's too big for her. However, it suddenly transforms, and magically readjusts to her size. He appraises her armor and finds out it's cursed, which makes her upset. She walks away, and Haru follows her. We then see Haru on the 98th floor as he gives Angelica a cape to make her happy, but he suddenly senses a monster. He uses his appraisal skill and sees a lich, realizing that only holy magic can defeat it. The lich blasts him with its magic, but he dodges the attack. He notes that he knows something that can destroy monsters with dark magic. He pokes it with his wood, killing it instantly, and thinks that it is really useful. On the 97th floor, he sees venom moths and realizes he will die if he gets poisoned by their powder. He summons a fireball, and they gather around it. He then pours his mana into the flames, burning all of them at the same time. He reaches the 95th floor and immediately senses a powerful presence. A living sword suddenly attacks him, and he sees that it's at level 100, realizing he's in trouble. It tries to cut him down, but he jumps away and attacks it from behind. However, he misses and Haru realizes that it doesn't move like other monsters. It summons smaller swords to attack Haru, and he realizes that he can't keep up, so he tells Angelica to take his place. She immediately rushes forward, and he thinks she's insane, but she slices the sword in half. He realizes that she's still overpowered even though her level dropped. Meanwhile, on the 50th floor, the others are struggling against a cyclop. The girls think they're doomed because everyone has reached their limit. The class rep is about to give up, but the nerds and the jocks tell her that they have a plan. The cyclop continues attacking them, and the jock leader attacks it, but the cyclops still manages to hit him. He realizes he isn't strong enough to defeat it, but he reveals that he was just acting as a decoy. Just then, the nerd leader launches a supercharged arrow that pierces through the cyclops' eye, killing it in one hit. Everyone celebrates their victory, and the class rep thinks that everyone's working together because of Haru, so she's determined to find him. Meanwhile, Haru and Angelica reach the 85th floor, but they suddenly feel an earthquake as a horde of monsters starts moving. We then see the guard thinking about Haru's group when he suddenly sees rats leaving the dungeon. He looks inside and realizes that countless monsters are spawning at the entrance, so he reports to the guild master, who realizes that the deepest dungeon has finally unleashed a monster stampede. Everyone becomes worried, wondering if Haru and his friends are okay since they went to the dungeon. The guild master then shows them an old document, revealing that the dungeon is alive. It continues to expand downward, and when it reaches the deepest floor, the monsters can no longer be contained, so they rush outside and go on a stampede. He mentions that the only way to stop it is to defeat the boss on the bottom floor, and the monsters will disappear if that happens. Suddenly, an earthquake occurs, and they realize that the monsters have arrived, while the guild master orders everyone to defend the town. Meanwhile, Haru encounters a group of griffins, and he uses paralysis poison on a fish before throwing it into the air. They all eat it, becoming paralyzed, and he finishes them off to clear the floor. Back at the town, the adventurers manage to defeat the monsters, but Gatek mentions that it was only the first wave, and he fears they will be overwhelmed if the monsters attack again. The guild master thinks Haru's group might be able to defeat the dungeon boss, so he suggests informing him about the stampede. Everyone thinks Mary should talk to him, but she explains that she won't go to the dungeon alone, so the guild master orders Ofter to join her. On the other hand, Haru reaches the 81st floor, where he is suddenly attacked by fish monsters. Angelica protects him, and he realizes that there are several swordfishes in the water. They are all level 81, and he knows they can cut him into pieces if he isn't careful. He recalls that they are sold frozen in the fish market, so he tries using his ice magic on the water, causing them to slow down. He then uses his packing skill to freeze only the swordfish, and he keeps doing the same thing as he moves ahead. Just then, the floor master suddenly appears and creates a tidal wave. Haru uses his earth magic to create a surfboard and starts riding the wave as the monster tries to attack him. However, Haru smashes its head, killing it instantly. He continues making his way to the surface and he finds a ring that increases luck as well as a bracelet that can dispel a curse. He also manages to defeat a necromancer on the 75th floor, which drops a magic orb containing mastery over life and death. He considers using the items he obtained, but decides he doesn't need them since he isn't cursed and his luck is already maxed out. Instead, he gives them to Angelica, telling her she needs them because she was under a dark curse. She doesn't want to accept them, but he insists, and she is overjoyed to receive them, while Haru thinks that she is a bit strange. He runs ahead to look for secret rooms, but she removes her helmet, revealing that she has turned into a human. Meanwhile, we see the others on the 54th floor where they encounter a pack of werewolves and manage to fight them off, but the class rep realizes that everyone is exhausted. They hear something approaching, but it turns out to be Mary and Ofter. They tell Mary that Haru is missing, but the class rep assures her that he will be fine. Meanwhile, Haru reaches the 74th floor and realizes it is filled with lava. He starts moving forward, and there are traps everywhere. He struggles to withstand the heat, and trips but Angelica saves him, and points him to a corner where he can rest. He takes a break, wondering how to restore his stamina, and he can hear wind coming out of a hole. He decides to rest there and uses his wind magic to create a gentle breeze. The class rep hears him and realizes his voice is coming from behind a wall. She calls out to him, and he realizes that they are in the hole where he had fallen. She wonders if he can use the hole to climb up, but he explains that he can't. He learns that they are on the 54th floor, and he promises to meet her there. Mary informs him about the monster stampede, telling him that the adventurers are about to get overwhelmed. Ofter reveals that they encountered the second wave on their way to the dungeon, and she explains that the only way to stop the third wave is to defeat the dungeon boss. Haru thinks she is talking about Angelica, so he explains that he has already defeated her. However, Ofter wonders why the second wave appeared, and asks Haru if he actually killed the boss, telling him that it is the only way to stop the stampede. He suddenly realizes that he needs to kill Angelica to save the town, but he can't bring himself to do it because she has been alone in the dungeon for years, and he feels sorry for her. He admits that he didn't kill the dungeon boss, but is determined to save everyone. He asks Angelica for her help in stopping the stampede, and reassures the class rep that he will take care of everything. She tells everyone that she believes in him because he has always saved them in the past. Meanwhile, the second wave reaches the gate, and adventurers are fighting them with Gatek leading the charge. However, he struggles against them because there are too many, and he mentions that everyone has reached their limit. The guild master reminds them that Mary went into the dungeon to save the town, and he tells everyone to believe in Haru's group because they are the only ones who can save them from the stampede. Back in the dungeon, Haru and Angelica begin to speed-run the dungeon, reaching the 73rd floor in no time. They see some lizards, and Haru takes care of them using his ice magic. Next, they face a two-headed dog that is strong and fast. However, Haru throws his bottled farts on its nose which blocks its sense of smell, and Angelica delivers the finishing blow.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
After that, they check out the items they received, and he decides to fuse the ones he can use, but he thinks that he still hasn't found the pheromone ring. Angelica wants him to take a break, and although he knows he is pushing himself, he also realizes that he can't afford to wait. As time passes, they reach the 69th floor where an owl uses its eyes to hypnotize Haru. He thinks he is immune to its effects because he has the general health skill, but he suddenly collapses when he realizes that his skill did not activate due to his exhaustion. As he regains consciousness, he sees Angelica carrying him, and he apologizes for making her worry. Meanwhile, the others are struggling against a level 100 Sphinx. Kazaki and Oda try to take it down, but their attacks have no effect. Ofter mentions that the Sphinx is immortal because its purpose is to ask adventurers riddles, and they are not supposed to fight. They realize that attacking it was a bad idea, and the Sphinx continues its assault. Meanwhile, Haru reaches the 59th floor and thanks Angelica for helping him recover. As they try to pass the crumbling floor, Haru senses a familiar presence. At the same time, the others fall into despair as they realize they cannot defeat the Sphinx, and it is about to kill the class rep, but Haru suddenly arrives to save her, and using his gauntlets he nullifies the creature's physical immunity. He remarks that the Sphinx is nothing compared to Angelica, because she is the dungeon boss, and she slices off its head. The class rep is happy to see him again, saying that everyone was waiting for his return, but she asks him about Angelica. He is about to introduce her to the others when the floor suddenly collapses, causing the class rep to worry. However, he manages to recover, and jumps back to the group, assuring everyone that he won't fall because he has learned new skills. Just then, the floor collapses once again, putting him in real trouble, but the class rep saves him, and pulls him to safety. Everyone praises her for saving him, but they have no time to celebrate because the third wave is making its way to the town. Mary thinks the town will be destroyed if they do not act, and the class rep asks Haru about his plan. He mentions that Angelica is the key to stopping the stampede, and they head to the town. They meet up with the guild master and the adventurers, but suddenly the third wave arrives, and the guild master thinks they have no chance because they are severely outnumbered. The adventurers crap their pants, and as everyone gives up the hope of winning, Haru signals Angelica. She goes ahead and unsheathes her sword. She stabs the ground, unleashing a powerful energy that covers the entire city. Haru explains that because Angelica is their boss, she has the power to vanquish them. A flash of light blinds everyone as the monsters disappear, and no one can believe it is all over. The others wonder what just happened, so Haru explains that Angelica used her powers to save them. Oda then realizes that she is the Dungeon Emperor, and everyone wonders if she might be a monster. Haru reassures them that she is not dangerous, and she even saved his life. He tells them that Angelica is the strongest one in the dungeon, but her level got reset. However, she still possessed the power to overwhelm other monsters, which is why he believed she had the authority to command them, though her powers only work at close range. The girls ask about the monsters, and he explains that they are all probably chilling in the dungeon as it was an order from the Dungeon Emperor. He declares that the town is safe, and everyone celebrates, realizing they can finally return to normal life. Afterward, Haru gathers the items he obtained in the dungeon and shows them to the others. They quickly realize that the items are rare, and he announces that everything here is on special Black Friday sale, making everyone excited.
Oh my god! Wow!
The mention of the word sale gives the girls superpowers to push the boys to the corner, and seeing that the boys are frightened by the girls' behavior, he gives the boys the items he had set aside, earning their admiration. Everyone is pleased with their purchases, and Haru is glad he could help, though he can't stop thinking about Angelica. We learn that she will be staying in town, but he is unsure whether she will get along with everyone because she struggles to communicate. While Haru's friend thinks how generous he is to share his rare loot, Haru is happy that he was able to make a fortune. Just then, the class rep thanks him for selling his items, and asks him to introduce Angelica. He reveals that she is the dungeon boss, and the class rep wonders if he used the pheromone ring on her, but he explains that he never found it, instead he used the servitude skill on her. Suspicious, the class rep asks why he did it, but he has no answer. She decides to ask Angelica herself, taking her away as Haru hopes she will eventually get along with everyone. Angelica joins the girls in their room, and they ask her how old she is. She reveals that she is 17 years old, which makes the girls happy to learn that she is about their age. The class rep wants to learn more about her, and understands that Haru used his skill unknowingly, which freed her from the dungeon's curse. In order to help her bond with the others, the class rep invites her to take a bath with them. They reach the bathhouse, and noticing Angelica struggling to remove her armor, the class rep helps her, assuming that despite being a skeleton, Angelica still wants to stay clean. However, as the class rep removes her armor, the girls are shocked to discover that she is a pretty blonde with a massive plot armor.
Oh my!
Later, we see Haru checking his stats and realizing that he has reached level 18 and even learned a new skill, though he cannot use it yet. He knows he wasn't strong enough to stop the stampede alone, so he is determined to get stronger and considers heading back to the woods for training. The next day, Haru talks to the class rep, and asks for permission to go to the woods. She allows him, however, when he invites Angelica to join him, the class rep freaks out because he is about to spend time with her, and he doesn't know her secret. The class rep stops them, but wonders why she is worried, and simply tells him to be nice to Angelica. They head to the woods, where Haru decides to test his new skill and tells Angelica to keep up as he uses his flash skill to boost his speed. Unfortunately, he ends up falling off a cliff, but he manages to use his other skills to land safely, and realizes that he still needs more practice. Angelica sees him, but she slips on the mushrooms and falls off. However, Haru manages to catch her, but thinks that she is unexpectedly heavy for a skeleton. They reach Haru's house, where he takes a bath and jokingly asks Angelica if she wants to join him. He thinks that she will refuse because she is still a girl, despite being a skeleton. Suddenly, she enters the bathroom with just a towel, and Haru freaks out. He realizes that it's Angelica, and takes her to his room to learn more. Angelica is still not able to speak up as she was a skeleton for so long, and she uses hand gestures to explain what happened to her. We learn that the Dungeon Emperor is a lifeless creature, but the cursed armor restored her flesh and the bracelet nullified its curse, which was supposed to prevent her from removing it. She was able to restore her life force because of the effects of the Necromancer's Orb and the Ring of Fortune, and as a result, she has turned into a human. Haru realizes that she was helping him because she wanted to thank him for saving her, but he feels that he might be robbing her of her freedom. He tells her that she is free to leave, but she becomes emotional, and Haru realizes that she doesn't want to be alone. He then shares the story of his adventures with her, and she enjoys listening. The next day, Haru challenges Angelica to a sparring match, explaining that he is working on his new skill and wants to see how much he has improved. She accepts his challenge, and he asks her to attack first. As she attacks, Haru uses his skill to dodge her attack, and decides to attack her. He rushes forward, and she hits him on his head. She is worried if she hit him too hard, and killed the remaining 2 brain cells he had. Haru tells her that he still hasn't mastered his skill, but he promises to surpass her in the future. Later, they go fishing together, and Haru decides to make a hot pot. When Angelica struggles to cut the fish, he teaches her how to do it. Once their meal is ready, they eat together, and Haru mentions that he is full. Suddenly, Angelica grabs his hand, and takes him inside. She tells him to sit beside her, and Haru gets excited about this plot development.
Yes! 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 Yes!
However, she begins giving him a massage, but it turns out to be poorly executed, as she misses all the right spots.
No! No! No!
He pretends that the massage made him feel better, but when she still wants to do more for him, he tells her to follow him. They stare at the night sky, and he pats her head as he thanks her for spending time with him. Then, she suddenly stands up and tries to speak, but she cannot, so he tells her he understands what she is going through, and that he knows she is doing her best to improve. The next day, they make their way to town, but it suddenly starts raining. Haru takes Angelica's hand, and tells her that they need to hurry. When they reach town, the rain has gone, but they are still holding hands. The girls are happy to see them, but they tease them as he is holding her hand. The girls surround her to learn what happened between them, and the boys tease Haru for getting a hot girlfriend even though he claims to be a loner. He shoos them all away, and Angelica approaches him to say thanks, but she's still unable to speak. He tells her not to worry, and starts to walk away, but just then, she calls out to him and thanks him in a faint whisper. She walks back to join the girls, and Haru feels genuinely happy for her. Haru reflects that everyone is different and has their own issues, but deep down, they are not so different. With friends willing to help each other, he is determined to master the world alone so he can save his friends when they need him. This is where the video ends. Thanks for watching.